Well, hello, everyone. My name is Esther Cohen, and I'm the Director of High Care for the Jewish Federation of Broward County in association with the Jewish Community Foundation. It really gives me great pleasure to speak with you today and introduce you to one of our high care clients, Barbara Rubin. Barbara Rubin and her husband, David Rubin, are receiving high care services. And basically, I'd like to, for all of you to get a glimpse as to what made her decide, propelled her in creating a legacy, giving back to the community, and ultimately receiving high care services. So, Barbara, I wanted to ask you, what propelled you and your husband, David, to become legacy donors?
Well, it really started by joining Federation, and we live in Broward County, and there really weren't that many Jews in Broward County. And we just felt also to just be part of the Jewish community. We also feel that being philanthropic is really, really important in our lives. And the high care just came as icing on the cake, actually. So,
So let me ask you, what has been the most impactful situation that you and David had experienced that high care came to your rescue or helped support your needs?
Okay, well, basically, I should really just backtrack a little bit. We had no idea about high care when we first became legacy members. And so it really is a terrific thing. My husband had a big problem, as you well know, and the high care really came to the rescue of having somebody else to speak to, another shoulder to lean on. Our children are distant, and so that you are right there and immediate. And going to the doctor's appointments with my husband is really an excellent thing, because even though I am 100% involved with my husband's care, just having somebody else there is really a wonderful thing. And in the case, I may not have all my records with me. The doctor's asking questions that I didn't anticipate. Just having the high care, like you, Esther, having all of the records, doctors and a lot of things, were able to participate in my husband's care. And in addition to that, my husband had AIDS for a while, and it was, some of those AIDS were not really up to snuff. And the high care representative really helped. So I was able to dismiss some of the AIDS based on another input. So it's been all 100% positive, really good. And it's really amazing. I mean, it's something I never anticipated. Never, of course, anticipated needing help. Always my husband and I were completely independent people. So it's been just great.
So Barbara, is there a piece of advice or guidance you would give others who are interested in creating a legacy in the Broward community?
Well, just go for it altogether. It's really important. You're helping the community and, surprise, helping yourself if you ever need it. It was a shock to me that we would need it, independent people. So it's been an amazing journey, and I can't understand why not enough people are participating. It's really important.
Well, thank you, Barbara, so much for giving us your honest thoughts, your guidance, your impression, and your recommendation for others in the Broward community to really jump on board, learn more about creating a legacy and this wonderful value-added benefit called high care that we offer all our legacy donors at no additional cost. It really gives me pleasure to work with you and David. I really love being with you and helping and supporting you. And I look forward to working with you in the next year and more years to come. Thank you again.
You're welcome. And it's my pleasure, ditto. It's been a pleasure being with you. Okay, right, bye now.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Esther Cohen, and I'm the director of the High Care Program at the Jewish Federation of Broward County. We are so glad you could join us this morning. I would like to introduce Becky Tinter, our High Care Chair, to begin the program.
Okay. Good morning, and thank you, Esther. I am Becky Tinter, and you are welcome to our second educational webinar presentation. Remember, when you create a Jewish legacy of $100,000 or more to the Jewish Federation, you are given the gift of the High Care Program, a personalized care management plan, welcoming and becoming your advocate when you are comforted with the challenges of aging and health-related issues. High Care's professional team helps to educate and provide you with the tools and skills necessary to assist in navigating through the healthcare system. We become an extended family to you and to your family, ensuring that your life is filled with dignity and respect, and you get quality of care and peace of mind to both you and your family. Today's webinar, Getting Prepared for the Future as We Mature, wants you to ask yourself the following question. Have you taken the necessary steps to be prepared for your future needs? Today, you'll learn about what is needed regarding estate planning, elder care, and pre-planning of future arrangements, and get the answers to pertinent questions that are asked so often. Today's two speakers, a board-certified elder law attorney specializing in estate planning, including guardianship, special needs planning, trust administration, Medicaid planning, and is senior partner at Ginsberg Schulman PL. Our second speaker is a family service counselor for King David Cemetery, Fairway Memorial Gardens, who works with families facing their difficult time of need. We are proud that King David Cemetery, Fairway Memorial Gardens is also a corporate partner of our federation. Please note that immediately following the presentation, there will be a Q&A, and please enter your questions in the Q&A function located on the Zoom at the bottom of the screen. Now it gives me great pleasure to introduce you to today's speaker. Jill R. Ginsberg, Esquire, is a board-certified elder law attorney and is currently the senior partner at Ginsberg Schulman PL. Ms. Ginsberg is a graduate of both Franklin and Marshall College and Brooklyn Law School. A former championship debater, Ms. Ginsberg often lectures and writes on estate planning, probate, guardianship, and charitable giving. She is the recipient of several community awards and active on the boards and planned giving councils of several organizations, including Memorial Health Care System, the Jewish Federation of Broward County, Community Foundation of Broward County, and Nicholas Children's Hospital, to just name a few. Ms. Ginsberg was integral in the development of the Silver Tsunami Study for Broward County senior population, and she sits on the Florida Bar Elder Law Certification Committee and is the recent recipient of the Florida Bar Pro Bono Award. Passion towards the appreciation and collection of art. Ms. Ginsberg is the head of the Planned Giving Board of Perez Art and has recently been elected to the 21-22 board of the Art and Cultural Center of Hollywood, Florida. She lives in Hollywood with her partner, David, and the rescue dog, Jeffrey. Secondly, Howie Steinberg is a family service counselor for King David Cemetery, Fairway Memorial Gardens. His lifelong dedication to compassion and service have given him the skills and dedication to be partners with families in a very difficult time. Ms. Steinberg grew up in New York City and graduated as a Division I athlete from Hofstra University. Mr. Steinberg spent his early career serving the community as a physical education teacher, and grew into the position of the athletic director at the Jewish Community Center in Boynton Beach. Mr. Steinberg currently lives in Coral Springs with his family and hopes that nothing more than continuing being a beacon of positivity to his community through his work. Thank you.
Thank you, Becky, for that fantastic intro. I am now going to share my screen, which I do not see here. There we go. Thank you. Let's share this one. And how are we looking there? So we are getting prepared for the future as we mature. And hopefully today's seminar will allow you to at least begin doing those things. I am going to start to explain estate planning. So a lot of people give me this blank look when they hear estate planning. But the issue when we get older, we really do need people to help us. You know, as we just heard in the first section of this, our high care recipient said, wow, I never knew that we were going to need this. We were strong, independent people, but you never know what's going to happen. And that's one of the great things with estate planning. And I try and tell people that it's really a misnomer. It's really a life plan, because you are allowing people to make decisions for you. I don't know about the rest of you. I'm kind of a control freak. I know my law partner knows that. And I like things done the way I want them done. The only way for you to do that is to tell people how and why and what you want done. And the only way to do that is through these particular tools that you are given. You're given the ability to tell people when you're incapacitated what you want. Now, obviously, my Britney Spears reference is, in her case, she wasn't able to. And that's one of the reasons why you need these documents. So let's talk about advanced directives. So advanced directives basically give you the ability to speak about what you want, how you want it, and when you want it. And it allows people to act on your behalf with these documents because you've told them what you want. We're also going to put a little plug in there, and we can't get too far into it, but don't forget your 18-year-old children and above too. You no longer have rights over them, and you will need these same documents that they'll have to execute too. First, let's go to a durable power of attorney. This is probably the single most important document, and as one of my judges likes to call it, a weapon of mass destruction, meaning it's also one of the most deadly. The problem with this document is it takes effect immediately. So it works while you're incapacitated, which means that's the durable part of it. It also works when you're not incapacitated. So if you are capacitated, someone is still allowed to act on your behalf. Now, what does this mean? What is a durable power of attorney? A power of attorney gives an agent, that's the person who you're naming, the ability to act on your behalf in major situations, such as banking, selling real estate, assets, making gifts, large items, large transactions that you yourself either can't, won't, or don't have the ability to make, but you've named somebody to be able to make those decisions. If you don't sign a durable power of attorney, your appointed agent will not be able to sign you into a nursing home or other facility. They won't be able to handle your Social Security payments. They won't be able to sign home contracts, pay your bills, or sign documents for Medicaid and Medicare. So the durable power of attorney allows somebody to act on your behalf in all of these situations, which is why it's such an important document. A lot of times I get clients that tell me, well, I really don't want to sign that. And I get children that say to me, my parents don't want to sign that document. The problem with not signing that document is all of those things can't be done if you become incapacitated. It's a double-edged sword because yes, people ask me this all the time, can they steal all my money? And the answer is yes, they can. You know, you can obviously, if you're alive and you're capacitated, put an end to that. But if you're not, it could be a problem, and sometimes in a lot of family situations it is. However, it's again double-edged sword and very difficult to decide, but it's really important to have the document, because without this document, the decisions that I just discussed can't be made. What is the alternative? A guardianship. Not going to go into guardianship today because I can speak for about 3 days on that. Let's just discuss how not to have a guardianship, which is having these documents. The other two very important documents to have, and these I think are so important, almost as important as a power of attorney, is a healthcare surrogate and a living will. A healthcare surrogate allows people to make decisions on your behalf. Now, obviously, if you're able to make your own decisions, you're not going to need a healthcare surrogate. But when you can't make your own decisions, such as you're in a coma or you're being operated on, this is a key time to have a healthcare surrogate, to have somebody to make decisions for you. For example, if you need more anesthesia or you're under general and you need something else, this is a time for somebody to be able to make that healthcare decision for you, which is why a healthcare surrogate is so important to have. And last but not least is the living will. And I'm going to discuss a living will versus a do not resuscitate order, because they're very different documents. A DNR, a do not resuscitate, is basically telling a doctor or hospital in one particular situation, when you're in the hospital or at a doctor's for that particular situation only, do not resuscitate me. If I am dying, if I am coding, please do not ventilate me, do not clear, do not do any of those things. Please just let me die. That is an order that is signed either by you yourself or your healthcare surrogate in a situation where you don't want to be resuscitated, and it's one situation. A living will is a will that tells your doctors and tells anybody who comes into contact with you medically wise that in these three situations, you do not want to be given food or sustenance or air or any of those things. It is not a DNR, but it is telling your doctors that you essentially don't want to be resuscitated. The three situations are as if you're in a coma, if you have a terminal illness, or if you have an end-stage illness. Those are the only three situations in Florida when you're allowed to have a living will and when that living will be followed. I get a lot of cute clients that, can I have assisted suicide? I'll just go to another state. Other states have rules, obviously, so does Switzerland, and you will need to reside in those states before you can take advantage of their laws. In Florida, those are the only three items that you're allowed. I'm going to go a little fast, obviously, because I don't want to take up Howie's time, because I'm going to give a plug to Howie, but one of the most important things you can have is have your funeral done. People don't understand that when a loved one dies, you don't want to be picking out their casket, you don't want to be picking out their gravesite, and you don't want to be paying for any of those things. You want all of those things to be taken care of and taken care of right away by the right person. So plug to Howie. We're going to go on to the next part, which is the actual estate planning part. And as you can see, I have a picture of 3 cubes together. And what I'm trying to get across here is estate planning is basically building. So you start out with a general plan and you build on that plan. Most clients will call us up and say, I want the simplest thing possible. What they don't realize is that simple plan is not what you want, because that's not going to be the right thing for you. When you build and you use building cubes such as this, you're able to formulate a plan for you and your family, one that works best. So we start with basic documents, and then we tailor those basic documents to your situation. Hint, the earlier you do things, the better off you are, because this way you're able to put things into place that you wouldn't be able to do if you waited to do them. We'll talk about first a will and a pour-over will and the differences. A will allows you to leave things in your will to the people who you want when you pass away. What these documents basically do is tell somebody, like a court or a personal representative, I have a house, I own several properties, I own money, I own jewelry, please give them to the following people or charities. That is what a will does. It passes things on. One also important thing to note is please do not put funeral arrangements in your will. Obviously, when you pass away, especially in Judaism, you need to be buried quickly. So you need those things done quickly. Generally, it takes a little while to find the will sometimes. So you're best off leaving your funeral plans separately from your will. Homestead is your house. It is the best protection that no one understands. I am not going to go into it because it is outside of the scope of today, but I can talk about that also for hours. Now let's talk about revocable trusts, which are really important documents that everybody seems to get wrong. A revocable trust does not offer any type of asset protection whatsoever, but what it does do is it allows your estate to go generally without probate to your heirs and makes things a little bit easier than going through the probate process. But what the revocable trust does do is upon your passing, it does become irrevocable. And at that point, it does provide asset protection. So a little bit confusing there. The revocable trust, while avoiding probate, still has its own issues as you need to administer the trust. So you don't get off scot-free, but it's a little bit easier than being in court. An irrevocable trust, which is a little different than the revocable trust, means that you can't revoke it generally. And these trusts are used generally, again, for asset protection, which means that you're putting your assets outside of your reach. A lot of times clients will call me and say, well, you know, I want to have access and I need access, but I want asset protection. Generally, it doesn't work that way. Generally, if you want asset protection, those particular assets are going to be out of your reach. You might be able to access them in different ways, but generally they must be out of your reach. These kinds of trusts where a trustee will have possession are life insurance trusts, or offshore trusts, charitable trusts, and make sure that you give money to the Jewish Federation of Broward County, Medicaid trusts, which are a whole nother aspect, pet trusts and gun trusts. Pet trusts so you can leave money for your pets, and guns so that you can leave your guns properly to your beneficiaries. Believe it or not, there are a tremendous amount of gun laws in the state of Florida. I can't speak to other states, and you need to leave those properly to all of your beneficiaries. Last but not least, in asset protection documents are different entities, LLCs, deeds, family limited partnerships, IRAs and annuities. These are also all types of retirement assets and other assets that will assist you in getting to process things and getting things so that when you do get older, you have everything in place, such as these documents. You'll talk with Howie and you'll have your funeral in place. And once those things are in place, the last piece is your long-term care insurance or some type of fund for long-term care. These are things that you'll be able to put in place because obviously as we all get older, we know that we might need aids. We know we might need, some type of healthcare in our home. We look forward to the future, to planning for that future. And that's basically what we're doing when we put all of these things into place. So now that I've taught you to put in your durable power of attorney, your healthcare surrogate, your living will, a regular will, a revocable trust, and any other types of documents that you will need, I'm going to send you over to Howie so that Howie can tell you all about funeral planning. Howie, take it away.
Jill, if you may stop your share, thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Just wanted to introduce myself. My name is Howie Steinberg. I was a family service counselor at Star of David for many years. I was also in the educational background as well. I transitioned to Fairway Memorial Gardens this year. I see a huge opportunity for families and for Jewish families as well. We're located in Deerfield Beach, right off of Military Trail, right off of Sample Road. Very convenient for families as far as getting to our location. We were established in 2016. So fairly new. Remember, when a lot of these cemeteries start, they have to start from somewhere. So we're about 6 years old. We don't have thousands and thousands of burials like you have at other locations, but we see a huge need for the Jewish families to have opportunities. And what we've done is We have Jewish consecrated grounds. We have upright sections. We have flat sections for families, which what those mean are there different types of burials. Some people like the upright stones. Some people like the flat stones. And we have family estates for families. And the good thing about our cemetery is we're in the front of the cemetery. So when you go to a lot of different locations, if you visit your loved ones sometimes, you're all the way in the back and it's hard to find people and you're going to the office. Well, with our location, you're right in the front, which is very convenient for families that want to find their loved ones. I'm just going to go through the slide here. We are basically, a lot of our staff consists of people that have worked at other locations that have transitioned over to our location, and they're all helping different families with different needs. Like I said, we have a location called King David, which is a Jewish consecrated section. We also have an all faith section for families that have mixed, Jewish and non-Jewish. So we offer that as well. And we also offer now, which is very unique, we have a pet cemetery. So families that want to take care of their pets as far as a final resting place, we offer that as well. And that's in a separate section. So these are all different sections. Let me move along the slide here. I want to talk to you guys about the difference between the funeral home and the cemetery. What's the difference? There's a major difference. People don't know. Just try to educate you in the couple minutes I have here. There's a big difference between the two, and I'm going to go over that with you now. Let's start off with the funeral home on the left. The funeral home consists of basically when someone passes, we have to bring you into our care. So within an hour or two, if you have arrangements made, which is why we're talking about this, you just make that simple phone call and you come into our care at the funeral home. And there we have to decide what we want to do. Does the person want to have a regular traditional Jewish burial? Nowadays, people are doing cremation as well, or entombment. Entombment would be, going into a mausoleum. And a lot of Jewish families, believe it or not, are doing that as well. And then also some families want to be transferred to different states. A lot of people have burials in New York, in Boston, California. The funeral home can facilitate this and have your loved one taken from our funeral home and sent to a cemetery up north. Also at the funeral home, we talk about caskets. So if they haven't pre-planned one, we can pick one out for the family if they choose with ground burial. The funeral home deals with the death certificates. So, families need to deal with death certificates as far as, closing out families' estates and things like that. And everything is coordinated by the funeral director. Okay, I'm a family service counselor. I would deal with the cemetery arrangements at the time of somebody passing. I would also deal with planning for funeral prior to somebody passing away, making pre-arrangements is something we want to discuss down the road. Okay, if you look at the right side of the screen now, we're going to talk a little bit about cemetery. Okay, the cemetery is basically your final resting place, whereas the funeral home brings you there. The cemetery is where you're finally rested. Again, whether it's a ground burial, a mausoleum, or cremation. Okay, and those are the different offerings we have. One amazing thing we offer at our cemetery is we have an indoor air-conditioned mausoleum, which you won't find anywhere in South Florida. Inside that mausoleum, and it's an all-faith mausoleum, but inside there we have glass front niches. So if you do choose to have cremation, we can place a memorialization inside there for your loved one. They have photos and things like that, so you can actually see the urn that's inside. Some people do like to do that as well. And one thing I also want to talk to you about it, well, if you can see at the bottom of the screen, is we don't charge any type of perpetual care. When you go to New York and you buy burial arrangements, they charge you yearly for perpetual care. With our location here in the state of Florida, our cemetery contracts, we allocate 10% of whatever you guys pay in to maintaining the cemetery grounds forever, whether that's fixing the grass, fixing the stone, any type of issues, they're maintained forever, and the family has no responsibility of paying down the road. It's already covered, which is huge. Okay, let me go to the next screen now and talk a little bit about our location. Why is our location so valuable? We're a combo location. What does a combo location mean? A combo location means we offer the cemetery and the funeral. A lot of places, locations, in Florida just have one or the other. We offer both. Now, why is that so valuable? Because the family doesn't have to go from one place to another. Everything is done at our location. Okay, we have a chapel a chapel on premise. So if the family chooses to have a chapel service, which is inside with the rabbi, they can do that and go right out to the cemetery. They can also have a graveside service. There's a huge monetary savings for doing everything together at once, funeral and cemetery. I'm going to go into that in the next slide. And you're also dealing with one person instead of going from one place to the other, especially when you have the funeral service, going from the funeral home and then driving all the way over to the cemetery. It's a schlep for the families. Everything here is done at one location, which is very valuable and important. Okay, most important thing in this slide I'm going to discuss is why is it important to make pre-arrangements versus dealing with it without making arrangements? And this is very, very important, and it's very significant, and I want to go over with you. So if anything else, this is the main focus I want to touch on in this presentation. Let's start on the right side now. Okay, when you have no arrangements made, okay, no planning arrangements made for your family, you have to scramble last minute. You don't know what to do. You don't know who to call. You don't know what mom and dad might have wanted. Did they want a cremation? Did they want to be in a mausoleum? You have no idea. You're panicking. You're overspending. Because think about it. When you're emotionally dealing with something at the worst day of your life, you have no idea what you're doing, and you're spending based on emotion, not based on what you really need to make a decision on because you pre-planned it. You're paying the money in full. So in order to do a burial and a funeral, the funeral home needs the money all at once. So you're having to come up with tens of thousands of dollars at one time to make all these arrangements, where if you did it prior to, you wouldn't have to deal with that. And the question I get from a lot of families, if you look at the bottom here, is life insurance. Oh, I have life insurance. Life insurance is for the living. It's for your children to use when you pass away for other expenses. If you don't lock in these arrangements at the time, even though you have money set aside in life insurance, well, in 20 years, that life insurance isn't going to be able to pay for that funeral. So that money is left for the family when someone passes, not to take care of funeral arrangements. And plus the fact that that money can't be pulled out right away. So you're going to have to lay out the money regardless and then get reimbursed. Okay, pre-arranging, which is the most important thing. All you do is have to make one phone call. You make that phone call when somebody pre-plans. Within an hour, max 2, we come and get your loved one, whether it's in hospice, the home, a hospital, bring them into our care immediately. And that's when the funeral home makes the phone call to your family and says, please come in, let's go over the arrangements. It makes things so much smoother for the family and so much more beneficial. Your mind is clear. You're able to make the right decisions. So let's say you wanted to change something down the road. You can always do that when you pre-plan. Well, if you pass away, somebody passes and you made a mistake, well, it's too late at that point. You can't go back. There's less stress on the family. You're avoiding the overspending, which is huge. The prices are discounted tremendously. When you guys make arrangements with us, we give you anywhere between 10 to 15% of a pre-needed discount. Most importantly, you're locking in the prices. So if something today costs $5, you've locked it in at $5. You're not paying $10 or $20 in 5 years, because these things, just like real estate, will go up. It's guaranteed. Payment plans. We give you a 60-month interest-free payment plan. So you're making payments every month, interest-free, and when it's paid off, you will get the deed and rights to that property. Again, and you're locking in today's cost. So these are major, major differences between the two sides. And again, you really need to think about what is beneficial for your family and what they need, because this is something, again, folks, you can't avoid. We all know we have to pay our taxes. We all know we're going to pass away sometime. So we need to take care of this. The story I get from a lot of people is, oh, I'm going to take care of it later. I'll deal with it. It's something you got to deal with now. It's something you're never going to really enjoy, but it's the greatest gift of love you can give your family, is to make these arrangements, because it makes it easier on you and it makes it easier on the family. Again, here's my information. Let's work together to help families in our community. Again, my name is Howie Steinberg. I'm in Deerfield Beach. There's my phone number and my email. Just jot it down quickly. If you have any questions, I'd love to give you a tour, answer any questions you may have. You can come in, no obligation, and I'll be able to help your family. Thank you again.
Howie, can you stop the share, please?
Yeah, I'm trying that right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jill and Howie, for a wonderful and informative webinar on how you prepare as you mature. We will now be taking questions from the viewers. I've been monitoring the questions that have been submitted in the Q&A. So the first question will be for Jill Ginsburg. I have a trust. How do I know what assets are in my trust?
That's a great question. So often I get people that waive their trust to me. I have a trust. Well, did you transfer anything into the trust? So any asset that says the revocable trust of Jill Ginsburg means that I've transferred that particular asset into my trust. If the trust is in, if anything is in my personal name, Jill Ginsburg, then it means it's not in the trust. And basically what happens is you need to tell whatever institution, the banking or whatever, hi, my name is Jill. I have this new trust. You send them a little letter that says, please do me a favor. Here's a copy of my trust. Please transfer my asset into my trust and they will retitle it. If you haven't sent anything in to retitle, it's not in your trust.
Great. The next question I have is for Howie. What does a funeral consist of?
Okay, a funeral consists of a lot of different things. Let's just go over a couple real quick. The main thing is bringing you into our care when you pass, whether, again, you're in hospice, you're in your home, you're in the hospital. That's the main thing. It includes the dressing of your loved one. So your family brings in clothing, whether they want clothing or they want a shroud. A lot of the more religious families would choose a shroud. It includes the bathing, the washing, the Hever Kadisha, if they want to have that, the ritual washing. It includes the casket. Some families choose the pine casket, which is the more, orthodox. Then there's different caskets they can choose from as well. And the main thing also is the graveside or chapel service. So a lot of the more religious Jewish families would choose the graveside service with the rabbi outside at the burial location, or they can choose the chapel service, which again, I said here at our location, we have it on premise. So those are a couple of the things that the funeral would consist of.
Great, thank you. So this question is for Jill Ginsburg. Is there such a thing as limited power of attorney?
Yes, there is. That's a great question. So one of the things that you can do is you can limit the power of attorney to exactly what you want. If you just want to sell a piece of property, you can limit it to that particular piece of property, which is a good thing because you can limit it. It's a bad thing because if you limit it, then it's limited to only what you've limited to.
Okay, great. This question is for Howie. How much is a plot?
Okay, so plot,
Bottom line.
I would say, I don't like the term plot. I would say how much is a burial location, but basically, if you look at the different locations in Florida, you've got, I'd say 3 of the main cemeteries. You'd have Eternal Light in Palm Beach. You have Star of David of the Palm Beaches. You have Star of David in North Lauderdale. You have us. And a lot of the plots in a lot of the locations, believe it or not, are more expensive now than they ever have been because, believe it or not, we have so many people passing with COVID. There's not a whole lot of spaces left in a lot of these cemeteries. I mean, there's literally nothing left. And they're building new areas in non-sectarian sections. Like at Star of David, they have a Jewish side, but it's on the non-Jewish side. So yeah, it's the extension. Here we have a Jewish consecrated ground called King David. And I'd say our prices are at least 50% less than other locations. So other locations for one person for cemetery, you're looking at anywhere between 10 to 12,000. Again, cemetery. Then you have the funeral, which would be the casket and services, which are, let's say, around 5,000. So for one person, you're looking at around $15,000 anywhere you go. At our location, you're around about 8,000. So, and we're doing this because we're trying to help our Jewish families start, we're a new location. So we're trying to drum up business and we're trying to help our families start from the beginning, like Star David did and like all these other locations did. You have to start from somewhere, and we're offering families huge incentives to come out, and there's a huge savings. So again, I'd say we're around 8,000 full package for one person, whereas other locations are almost double. And you can research and make phone calls.
Now, I can actually confirm that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the bottom line is the cost. Everyone's worried about that. And as someone told me from your field, Howie, it's buying property. So it's an investment. So it's property. I have another question for Jill. How do I leave high care money in my will? Does it have to be cash?
Does it have to be? No, I love that question. We take anything. It does not have to be cash. How do you leave? You can leave cash. You can leave stocks. You can leave your IRA. You can leave your house. You can leave a house. You can leave property. You can leave life insurance. You can leave it in a charitable remainder trust. There are so many different ways, but in your will, no, you can actually leave if you want to leave stock. And the other thing that you can do in your will is you can also, and I don't want to get too technical, but you can leave percentages to people. So let's say you can have your entire estate and leave a certain percentage to the Federation. And then your personal representative will decide what assets go. So any type of asset is acceptable in the Federation.
Right. Right. Well, thank you, Jill, since you're on my high care committee, so you're fully aware of all this and your commitment to high care. So my next question is for Howie again. What are the payment terms? You know,
Payment terms.
now we were talking about money. If we're ready to buy, how do we do it?
Okay, so that's a great question. And people don't realize this, but the payment terms are very, very flexible for the families. So what we do is we ask for 10%, sometimes 15% down, depending on what the family could afford. And it's based on 60 months. So 5 years, interest-free, no finance charges. You're locking in the pricing. You're putting down that 10% or 15% on the cemetery. And again, you're locking in the pricing. So whatever you choose, that percentage is based on whatever location you choose. We've got the mausoleums, we've got upright memorial sections, we have the cremations. So the 10% based on the total price of the contract. And then we break that out, the difference over 60 months. Once it's paid off, then you'll get a deed to the property, just like you get a deed to owning a home. And then that's yours, that you have the rights to use that space. We as the cemetery own the space, but you have the rights to use that space. Now, that's very important. Now, another thing people need to realize as well, this is a good question that I'm going to bring up. If someone passes away while you're making the arrangements, let's say I pre-planned for mom last year, and then all of a sudden in 2 years into the contract, she passes, we still bring mom into our care. We take care of everything. And then whatever money was paid in, we just collect the difference at the time. There's no stress, there's no pressure, but that happens a lot. It's very common that people pass while they're in a contract, and we then still facilitate everything and then bring your loved one into our care, and the balance is taken care of at the funeral home.
Wow, that's great to know. Real good information, Howie. So getting back to Jill, do I still have to go through probate if I have a will?
Yes. Unfortunately, the answer is yes. So a will is a document that conveys, but it only conveys through a personal representative. That personal representative must be appointed by the court because there are very specific statutes in Florida that only allow certain people to serve as a personal representative. I get a lot of clients from out of state, from New York, California, and they'll come down and say to me, oh, my attorney up in New York is my personal representative. Unfortunately, because that person is not a relative of yours and is not a resident of the state of Florida, they cannot serve as your personal representative. So the court has to appoint somebody else, which is why in a will, the will must go through what's called probate and will have to go through court. And that's the difference between that and a revocable trust. The revocable trust, the trustee takes over right away. There is no lapse and there is no court generally for a trust.
Okay, interesting. So another question for you, Jill. is I am a spouse. Why do I need a healthcare surrogate for my spouse, for my loved one?
Great question, because even though you're a spouse, you still don't have rights over that particular individual. Everybody needs their own healthcare surrogate. I'm going to say it again. Everybody needs their own healthcare surrogate. I get a lot of spouses. Well, that's my husband. Well, that's great, but unfortunately, that's him. You don't
Mhm.
have the right to make his decisions for him. Only he does.
Right. Interesting. Yeah, that's a major question all the time, and people are very misled by it and they don't really quite get it. So thank you for clarifying. And speaking of a clarification, another question that one of our viewers put out to you, Howie, is what is the difference between cremation, ground burial, and a mausoleum?
Okay, I know I touched a little bit about this in the what I discussed before, but let me explain it again real quickly. So cremation is becoming very common, and it's not so much that people are doing it for two reasons. One, because of the cost, it's much less expensive. They're also doing it because they think it's more eco-friendly, and basically cremation is when someone's cremated, they're brought to a crematory and they come back in an urn, which is a small container, where that would then be placed into either a niche, we call it here at the cemetery, inside the mausoleum, where people could see that, or they could also be buried in the ground as well with the cremation. A mausoleum would be basically a person in a casket. They have to be in a metal casket, not a wooden casket. Goes into basically, we could say a wall or a location. And then the third would be a ground burial, which is the most traditional, where someone is buried in a casket in the ground. So those are the three different options that people choose. I do recommend, if you go with cremation, a lot of families need to take that cremation and bring the urn to the cemetery where it could be placed as a memorialization, because taking the urn home as the generations pass, it's just going to get shuffled to the side. And people don't realize that. They say, oh, I want to just do cremation. I'm going to take the ashes home with me. That doesn't make a whole lot of sense, because as your children grow up and then their children grow up, no one's going to remember who grandma was. But when you place it at the cemetery, it's at a safe, secure location, and you know where it's going to be placed. One thing I just want to end with, and I just thought of this as I was talking before, is, it's great that everybody's on this webinar listening to us talk and give you information. But like when Jill's speaking and I'm speaking, we're going over stuff. You guys really need to take advantage of actually calling us and coming in and meeting with us. Because the first step is getting the information, which is great. And a lot of people call into the office all the time. I have questions, but they don't act on what they're doing. It makes them feel comfortable to talk about it, but they don't actually do anything about it. So you guys that are on this webinar, you made a great step by listening and getting the information, but you need to reach out to both of us in our different fields and take advantage of what we went over and actually put it into place and put it into action and do something about it. And that's the most important thing. And I'll end with that.
Okay. Well, I have one more question for Jill. Do I need a power of attorney and healthcare surrogate for my son in college, who's 18 years old?
Yes, that's an easy one. And one last answer to that. You may need one, but he's the one that has to appoint you. So just saying, it's his durable power of attorney and his healthcare surrogate. Remember, each document runs to that person.
Right. Well, thank you. That is our last question. Thank you, Jill and Howie. On behalf of the Jewish Federation of Broward County, we want to thank you for providing an informative discussion of how you prepare for the future. We would also, again, like to acknowledge and thank King David Cemetery Fairway Memorial Gardens for being our corporate partner. Now, I have a few questions to ask each of you, our viewers, participants here. And if you answer any question with a yes to one or more of the following questions, then high care may be the right option for you to consider. Do you live alone or do not have a family living nearby? Are you comfortable navigating through the healthcare system? Do you understand your options to have quality of care as you age? And my last question, if you are 65 years of age or older, do you feel you have lost independence due to a medical condition? Please contact me, Esther Cohen, at ecohen@jewishbroward.org, or find out how high care can help you. Thank you again for participating in today's webinar. Please look for the information on the Federation website for our future webinars. Enjoy the rest of your day. Stay safe and have a happy Passover and Easter holiday. Thank you again.
Didn't come up much.